Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing, and we've got a really interesting one out here today. We're going to try and answer a question that a lot of people can really get to debate on, and it seems like some people agree and some people don't. So hopefully we can maybe answer some questions, or at least put it to the test and see what happens with the setup and stuff we've got out here to try out today. So the question is, when it comes to shooting buckshot in a 410, what choke is the best choke to use? Because in a 410, whether you have a 2.5 inch like 3 pellet load or a 3 inch 5 pellet loaded, pellets are going to be stacked perfectly in a row with each other in one long line essentially. So the question a lot of people ask is, well, does it really make a difference what choke you use? Because if they're all in a line, you're not really going to be constricting any type of pattern or anything like that. And I kind of fall somewhere in the middle there. I don't think we're going to see much of a difference between like a cylinder bore or an improved cylinder, or maybe even a modified. I don't think there's going to be a lot of difference there. But if you start getting into an improved modified or a full choke or something like that, anything with a constriction that's going to start actually squeezing the buckshot pellets themselves and deforming them, that's when we might start to see a difference, because it might change the flight characteristics of the pellet itself. So it might actually blow the pattern open a little bit more. I don't know, but that's the kind of question that we're going to try and answer today. So for the shells we're going to use, these are what we're going with. These are some Winchester Super X 410 3-inch 5 pellet loads of triple-aught buck. They say they're going to go 1135, but we will also test that and see what happens. So for the setup I've brought out here today, I brought out this guy. This is my Mossberg 500 410. It technically is the turkey model, but it's nothing special like an overbore or anything like that. So it'll work perfectly fine for this test. But the good part about it is it has interchangeable chokes in it, so we can actually test this. So the plan for today is, as you can see in there, I have a cylinder bore choke screwed into the gun right at the moment. We're going to put 4 rounds of this triple-aught buckshot downrange, and it's going to be at 40 yards. I'm going to start out by putting a shot on my paper down there with the cylinder bore choke. Then I have an improved cylinder, a modified, and a full that we'll put a shot through as well, and we'll see what kind of patterns we have at 40 yards with those different chokes. So maybe we might be able to see if there's any kind of noticeable difference, or if it really doesn't matter. So let's start out by putting a round through the cylinder bore choke. So let's get you guys set up with a view of the chronograph. You'll see all 4 shots across the chronograph. That way we can get kind of an average velocity here of what we're getting out of these shells. And then we'll go down and I'll edit together all the different patterns. That way we can look at them back to back and side by side and see how they actually performed. So let's head over here and get set up with a chronograph. We'll shoot all of our shots, and then we'll go take a look and see how they did. Alright, so let's take a quick look at our chronograph numbers here real quick. Remember, the box was claiming 1135, and I definitely think we saw that. So for the 4 shots that we got here, we had a high of 1174, a low of 1116, and that gave us an average of 1149. So just slightly above what the box was claiming, so I think the box was pretty much right on the money for this one. So I don't think there's really anything too out of the ordinary to see here, but how did it all perform? Let's go check it out and kind of compare chokes and see what happened. Alright, so first up here, this is our 40-yard target with the cylinder bore choke. Now, that cross in the middle was my point of aim, so we hit to the right. And as you can see, we only have 4 out of the 5 pellets that hit this piece of paper. Chances are the other one probably went off to the right edge if I had to take a guess, but I don't know that for certain. But I did take a tape measure and measure this group from that top hole to the bottom hole down there, and we got a total of 16 inches from what actually hit this piece of paper down here to start out with. So now let's scoot over and take a look at our improved cylinder choke and see how that one did. Okay, so now we're at 40 looking at our improved cylinder choke combination here, and same point of aim, but as you can see, we only had 3 pellets this time out of the 5 that hit our paper. And out of the full measurement there, it gave us 22.5 inches from that top pellet to that bottom pellet down there. And clearly it's even larger than that because we only have 3 out of the 5 pellets on the paper. So we're not looking quite as good as the cylinder choke, so it might be making a little bit more difference than I thought, even down at this very minor constriction choke. But let's scoot over and see how the modified choke did. Alright, so here's our modified choke, and this is getting pretty interesting here. We had all 5 pellets on our paper this time, even though we had a little bit larger number, being 27 inches from the top left pellet to that bottom right pellet. We had what looks to be a better pattern out of that. So it seems like, kind of regardless of what number we had, I would much rather have all my pellets on a piece of paper like that for sure. So far, it's looking like the modified might be the best choice. So now, with that being said, let's scoot over and take a look at our full choke and see what that one gave us. Alright, so here's our full choke, and we have, once again, all 5 of our pellets on this paper, and pretty centered up, I'd say. Now, from the bottom left to the bottom right was our farthest point in this pattern, and that gave us a 17.5 inch spread there, which is still not quite as good as the first number we saw, being 16 out of the cylinder choke. However, the cylinder choke did not have all the pellets on the piece of paper, so we know that it was larger than that 16 inches. So this is pretty surprising. That full choke right there definitely seems to be the best option, which that's not exactly what I expected to see, because that's not really bad looking at all for what it is, for sure. I guess it kind of makes sense, being that these are triple-aught buck. They're not going to be perfectly sized to the bore. So it appears like the full choke and maybe even the modified choke were closer to the actual size of the pellets themselves, which helped out a little bit in their flight, because I don't necessarily think that they squished those pellets enough to make any kind of noticeable difference. So looking at all these side by side here, I would definitely say that the full choke probably had the best performance here. It's not at all what I was really expecting to see, but hey, that's why we come out here and test things. So with the triple-aught buck Winchester Super X shells, I would say that a full choke is probably what you're going to want to try and use. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that test? That was definitely very interesting and not really what I expected to see. Now, like I was talking about earlier, if we tried double-aught buck or anything like that with a little bit larger pellet size, we might see a little bit different story down here. But that triple-aught buck might just be about perfect size for the bore once we start getting up close to around that full choke mark, which is why we might have seen better performance here. But at the end of the day, what do you guys think about it? And have you tested something like this? And are those the similar results to kind of what you got out of yours? Let me know your thoughts about it all. But with that being said, I'm going to get back to all the normal testing and some more hunting for you all as well coming real soon. So stay tuned. And if you want to see sneak peeks of all that stuff, then head on over to the Instagram. I will leave it in the description as always. So on that note, I'm going to jump back to it, and I'll see y'all in the next one.